Hello, wonderful school counselors. I hope you're doing great. I wanted to share this quick, easy tutorial with those that might be interested in using learning stations as a school counselor. So maybe you've been asked or told to teach a special and you're kind of freaking out. It's totally understandable, but hopefully after watching this, you'll have some ideas to make this new adventure easier, more fun, and maybe even a little exciting. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the things that I did that really seemed to help me when I was on the specialist schedule. Let's first look at the big picture. The way that I had set up my lessons is that I would do whole group mini lesson for the first usually about 10 to 20 minutes of our time together, and then we would transition into learning stations or centers for the remaining time. And just to kind of let you know, I use the terms learning stations and centers interchangeably. To me, both learning stations and centers are small group areas set up around the classroom where kids can work independently. So hopefully that kind of helps you get a better picture of what I mean when I use those terms. Okay, so let's look at some of the details. All right, so how did I make this work? Well, I would have a bowl with these really cool number chips with me at the door when kids came in. As they walked in, I would greet them and they would pick one of the chips from the bowl, and then they would proceed to that corresponding seat number. So for example, if they picked chip number 3, then they would go over to the table with the number 3 on it. Once they were seated, I would then have a helper quickly and quietly pick up the chips from everyone, and then I would be starting the mini lesson. That would be their seat for the day, at least during their mini lesson. We'll talk about how we transitioned into our stations in just a moment. I believe that making the mini lessons easy to implement helped me out in a lot of ways, especially because I was teaching a lot of classes. So I wanted to be able to maintain my sanity on this new adventure. So I'll share some examples and resources for mini lessons on a later slide, but on the topic of keeping things simple, I also chose to create K2 lessons and 3 through 5 lessons only. So basically, all kindergarten, first, and second grade had the same lesson for that week, and then I had a different lesson for all of third, fourth, and fifth grade, instead of creating a different lesson for every single grade level. To me, that really helped me. Okay, so once my short mini lesson was done and over with, we would transition into centers. I did this by reviewing what our station or center options were. They were also listed on the board, similar to what you see here. I would then use that same bowl of number chips that were collected by my helper, draw on a number, and then let the child that was seated at that seat number choose what center they wanted to go to. This made the process simple, fair, and it discouraged any number chips from magically going missing, because we all know how much we love those number chips. As the students walked over to their chosen station, I would mark a tally on the board for that station, which is what you see right here. This let the students know which stations were full. My max number for stations was 6. So once the station had 6 tally marks, like this one right here, you would see that the creation station would be full. Then students knew that that station was full and that they would need to pick a different station. Another thing I did is I would have students stand next to their chosen station until everyone had picked their station. This helped to avoid things like overcrowding in certain spaces and kept things much more simple. Once most of students had picked their stations, I'd go ahead and let them get started. They were allowed to do any of the activities available to them in that center, and then I would float around the room to monitor and see how things were going. I also found it very important to leave time for cleaning up and lining up. This was very helpful. So what I did is I would give students a 4-minute warning until cleanup, and then a 2-minute warning until cleanup. And then I would actually give them about 3 minutes to clean up and get lined up. Of course, the station that was cleaned up and quiet the quickest would be the station that got to line up first. There's a lot of free timers online, so if you have projectability, I don't know if that's a real word, but that's what I call it, and we'll talk about that next. It might be really helpful to have a visual timer projected on like your screen or your whiteboard. All right, so let's look at some more tips or ideas. So just to clarify, the tables that students are sitting at during your mini lesson also function as your stations. I had set up tables in group or station format, and that is where students sat during the mini lesson. So it's not that there's two separate areas in the classroom that you're using, it's the classroom as a whole, but it's functioning or serving two different purposes. Hopefully that makes sense. Another thing that I found really helpful was to have station tubs or baskets set up and ready on a shelf near that station. The tubs and baskets would have all the materials that that station needs, and kids can easily be taught to grab the tubs and bring them to that station when the time is right. Here's an example. So these might be the tubs or baskets for the creation station. So these would all be sitting on a shelf next to the creation station or somewhere nearby that kids can easily access them. I also love to have a bell to stop the class and point out something. So whether it be to give them a compliment, or maybe a station was using great teamwork skills, or if there's even a problem-solving situation that has arisen, I would ring the bell and everybody would knew to freeze, look at me, and we would either have a conversation and problem solve maybe a situation that was happening at a station as a class, or I would be able to give them a compliment for using some type of positive pro-social skills. I loved it because I thought it was a great way to provide the class with feedback as well as opportunity to practice lots of different skills. One other thing that I thought was helpful was having projectability, and that's basically just being able to project something onto the screen or whiteboard. This was super duper helpful for me. I used a lot of online resources or would use like bibliotherapy books, and it made it so much easier to have a document cam or your laptop connection to be able to project it on the quote-unquote big screen. Your technology person at your school would probably be super helpful in this area. The behavior management strategy that worked really well for me was first and foremost PBIS, because I love it. I love being able to point out and award the positives, but I also did have consequences in place. I used kind of a 3-strike model. So on a clipboard, I'd keep a laminated piece of paper with all the seat numbers listed on it, and then I'd use a dry erase marker to put a strike or a tally next to the student's seat number if they were maybe making poor choices. If they got to 3 tallies, then they had to go to the reflection table and do a reflection sheet instead of getting to go to a station. Kids loved getting to do stations, so I felt like this was really, really effective. Also, I would keep the station titles and locations and mostly the activities the same. Sometimes I'd maybe swap out or replace some items or add something a little different, but overall, I like to keep things the same. I feel like it really helped the students to know what to expect and gave them something to look forward to. So these are just kind of some tips and ideas that really helped me. Now let's look at some ideas for our stations or centers. So these are some of the stations that I had. Excuse me. When I was trying to come up with station ideas, I tried to think of different skills or coping strategies that could really help students be more successful. And then I tried to create stations that allowed students to practice these different skills or strategies. So these are the ones I came up with. And then I also have some of the supplies and materials listed. So let's look at this list. I had the problem-solving station, and some of the supplies or materials that I would have in there would be puzzles, even combination locks, mind puzzles such as this, mazes, different types of mazes. You'll be amazed at what you can find at Target, Walmart, Amazon, definitely, and be sure to check the Dollar Tree first. They have a lot of cool different things. I also had a journaling or mindful coloring station. Some of the things that I would have there: colorful paper, lined paper, pens, pencils, crayons, markers, mindful coloring pages for kids. I mean, you'd be surprised at how many you can get online for free. So don't be afraid to look for free stuff first. I also had a social skill play station. That is where they would actually interact with each other and show pro-social skills in both winning and losing. some of the games I would have there: Connect 4, Jenga, Candyland, or if you have those wonderful counseling games in your office that you don't always have time to get to use, this is a great time to put those in one of your stations. Then I also had the creation station, and this is where they would use their imagination to try to create, and in essence having to problem solve, because the blocks or the deck of cards didn't always work out and didn't always let them build the thing that they wanted to build it. So it was a really cool station to watch. So I would have things like Legos, obviously blocks, decks of cards. You might want to check maybe some of your kindergarten classrooms for some supplies that they're maybe not using. Even though it sounds very young, you would be amazed at how many 5th graders absolutely love the creation station. And then another suggestion, now this would be one that you would have to change pretty regularly, would be your mini lesson station. So basically having an activity that ties into the mini lesson that you had just taught. So again, that one needs to be changed a little bit more often. Alright, and then let's look at some ideas for mini lessons. These are just some of the resources that I would use. Books. I love them. We probably all have a plethora of them in our counseling collection and don't always have time to get to or use all of them. So this is a great way to, if you have projectability where you have like an overhead or document cam and you can show it on the big screen, it lets everybody see the pictures and it makes things much more simple. YouTube is another great place. Let's see, they have tons of good videos. I'm sure you've probably already checked some out and used a lot of them. I just warn you, make sure you preview the whole video first. No need for surprises on that one. And then there is a cool website called Counseling with Heart, and they have free video books as well as digital books. They're really awesome. And this is actually a page from their website. When I say video books and digital books, they're actually two different things, and if you go to their website you can kind of see the difference. One is the story is being read by somebody else. The other is it's literally just the book in a digital format, so you can kind of turn the pages or click to turn the pages and you would read it aloud, or maybe have some of the students help with that. Another website that you have probably heard of is the WeDoListen.org. That is where Howard B. Wigglebottom hangs out, and this is what his website looks like. If you go up here where it says books and something else, can't really read that, you can click on it and it will take you to a lot of free video books. And here is my plug for mindfulness, because I do love some mindfulness. But if you use the website GoNoodle, they have a whole category. I would click on this at the top of the page. You'll see this, it says categories, and then mindfulness will come up, and you can click on each one of these topics and there will be a number of videos that go along with that. It's a great way to introduce mindfulness both to students and teachers. It's super simple. Most teachers are using GoNoodle, so they would probably have no problem navigating to that website, and then if you just talk to them about the mindfulness links, they can start incorporating that in the classroom too. Okay, I digress. Alright, so you might have a huge undertaking ahead of you, but it really can be a lot of fun and a little exciting too. So, some positive things to be thinking about. So the good thing is you only have to create 2 mini lessons a week or rotation. It's like we talked about earlier, you can do the same lesson for kindergarten 1st and 2nd, and you can do the same lesson for 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Another good thing about this is that you really do get to know the kids and they really do get to know you. You don't have to try to schedule your classroom guidance lessons anymore, so that should free up some time. And also the fact that kids are learning and practicing these awesome coping strategies, relationship skills, all while having fun. Pretty good stuff. Alright, that's all for now. I hope everyone has a wonderful day and a great adventure. And if you have any questions, you can let me know. Thanks so much. Have a great day.